shows really that we are really, this is just for only adjusting the regulation among the board. For the airport, King Khalid jumped to 58 compared to 2020. It was number 98. Jeddah Airport jumped to 50, ranked to 50 among others globally, which is really shows how the division is going ahead of time.
MashaAllah. Thank you, Mr. Mohammed. Let me move to you, Mr. Farouk. Mr. Mohammed has mentioned a number of objectives, and one of which is to develop bonded zone and integrated logistic solutions. And your company probably is one of the first companies to introduce bonded zone and integrated logistic solutions. However, our observation is that we still see that many multinationals prefer to operate from their overseas logistic hub. So, in your view, what are the main challenges and what can we do to attract investors?
Thank you very much, Vishal, and thank you very much, Mr. Mohammed and SIDF for arranging this session. It's a very valid and relevant question at this point in time, that with all the initiatives, are we creating the right type of attraction for international players to be using the infrastructure that the country is investing in, or why still they are sitting on the fence if they are? So today, obviously we have just started, but if we look at it from a perspective of an international player, there are a few factors they look at it. Of course, return on investment, growth, market reach, ease of doing business, which is one of the KPIs as well, which actually deals with the softer elements of setting up a hub, primarily regulatory facilitation as well as talent, access to talent, where we have just started focusing in. One of the key reasons why they are still on the fence, by no means there are new developments as well, so there are new companies coming in, but for the established players, the rest of the logistics parks or around we have around Saudi Arabia, they have had a head start. Okay. Most of these companies have grown with and grown in those logistics parks. So they already have an investment made over there. Now it's a question of whether there is enough volume that justifies making a new investment in Saudi Arabia, even though Saudi Arabia is the largest economy in the region, Middle East, North Africa. But if you are looking at it from global perspective, is there enough volume that can justify setting up or investing in the country? Another element to that is, of course, our taxation regime. Despite all the initiatives of special economic zones and everything, is not at par with global other regional countries. The incentives that are being offered over there, we are looking at it from a perspective of, okay, there's an incentive from where Saudi Arabia was in the past. But we shouldn't assume that the rest of the world is staying still. They will fight hard to retain and continue to grow their investment base. They will offer even more incentives to not let them leave, if it is. Yes, market is growing. We are seeing the swings, business cycles, COVID up and down, and now the rest of the world is bracing for recession next year. So most of the investment decision making is not only driven by what happens in Saudi Arabia, but what is also happening in the rest of the world. But that said, I think Saudi Arabia still retains an attractive proposition for international players, and it's only a matter of time. We have just started, where the other countries have been there for 20, 30 years. But we are moving fast, and inshallah, I'm very confident that very soon the situation will start changing as we ride out the business cycles.
Inshallah. Thank you, Mr. Farouk. Mr. Abdullah, in Saudi Arabia we have a number of sectors. Some of them are mature sectors, some of them are still under development. But your company, Katunati Al Khaneni, is highly specialized in petrochemicals. So can you highlight to us how K&K is adding value to the petrochemical sector, since it is one of the mature sectors within the kingdom?
Assalamu alaikum. Good morning all. Just small highlight. The person in the picture is not me, though I'm happy with the change though.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. That's okay. Going back to the question, I'll take you back like around 15 years ago, where the market was shy in terms of petrochemical logistics service provider. We had two startups since day one, startups, and the companies where we were interacting with at the beginning were very shy when it comes to their final product, because this is the image of the company. I just want to highlight that we are a logistics, petrochemical logistics service provider. So we are not delivering packages. We are not a transportation company. We are logistics, specialized in petrochemicals. Currently, we are only specialized in petrochemicals. So during that time, we had a very shy startup. We started with advanced petrochemicals, and then we moved to Sahara International Petrochemicals Company. And guess what? After more than 15 years, we are still there. So they are not satisfied. They are extremely happy, and they are looking forward to even extend our relationship and partnership with them. So yes, I would definitely say that 15 years ago, the market was shy in terms of petrochemical logistics service providers. But now it's aggressively moving forward. Now we are even moving the operations that we are doing outside of the premises of the client. So when we are talking about added values that we are adding to the customer, first to our customers, first thing that I would love to highlight is cost. We're saving a lot of cost for customers, which is basically what everyone is looking for, cost reduction. And not only we are reducing their cost for nothing, we're reducing their cost for a very well done job. So because you're operating inside customer premises, so you have to. There is compliance to the procedures. You need to have your SOPs. You need to have your licenses, and that's basically why we have aggressively went into big players in the market, especially in Jubail, and now we are moving forwards, inshallah, towards expanding even our operations, not only in Jubail. Now we are operating in Yambo, and we're looking forward also to expand. Perhaps maybe in the near future, inshallah, here in Riyadh and Rabat as well.
And maybe, if I'm not wrong, also you are giving your clients the opportunity to focus on their core business, because their core business is operation, while yours is logistics services.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. We're not only offering services. We are offering solutions. So we're not only adding the service that we provide. We're adding consultancy, and we are adding engineering and design of warehouses, because this is our core business. We are literally designing warehouses, operating warehouses, and in one of the projects that we are operating, we have a very unique, fully automated warehouse where no single human entry is put. It's all systemized. From the flange of the silo until the storage location, it's fully automated. We have RGVs and WMSs operating instantly with no human input in there. So this is what we are trying to synchronize also with our operations, because it's not an easy thing to be doing. Basically, we are a downstream of an upstream, so it's not an easy thing handling all those volumes. We started in the beginning with less than 1 million metric ton of handling, and now, as I'm speaking, we're handling more than 13 million metric tons over a year. So that's a big portion of the market handled by us, and hopefully, inshallah, in the future we'll be moving forwards to other business units, not only petrochemicals.
Inshallah, bi'idhnillah. Thank you, Mr. Abdullah. So, Mr. Ayman, since we are talking about solutions and services that are provided by logistic companies, your company, SSI Schiffer, is one of the market leaders when it comes to material handling equipment, which is one of the solutions that logistic companies provide. So, would like you to highlight to us the main challenges you are facing in this industry, and also who are the major buyers of your equipment? Are we talking about 3PL service providers or captive logistics business?
Assalamu alaikum jami'an. Thank you, Mishal, and thanks for us, IDF, for organizing this great event and knowledge share for everyone, and thank you for the audience to be here. Abdullah, just let me clarify something first. Maybe many of the audience, they know about Schiffer, or they heard the name for the first time, or maybe other they know it already. Schiffer is one corner, or was one stone of the huge puzzle of the logistics, because logistics is a huge. We're talking about transportation, managing operation, warehouses. So Schiffer is a modular system provider. So we provide storage systems that improve the efficiency, the productivity within the warehouses, within the internal logistics environment. So we are a system provider, solution supplier. So when we talk about the challenges, let me answer your question in two parts. Yeah, let's talk about the business challenges, or business aspects challenges, and the functional challenges. When we talk about the business, when we talk to our, let's say, partners in Saudi, business owners, decision makers, the main mindset or the impression when we talk about automation, yeah, automation is expensive. It's high investment. The ROI, return on investment, is just too long. Yeah, the labor, the land cost, respectively, is low. If we need to decide to go for such a step, I would agree and disagree with this point. But this is one of the most challenges, because such challenges might kill the idea before it starts. And we don't say that the automation is the solution for everything, but it is a long-term planning. So sometimes, we have to differentiate between what's nice to have and must have. Many of our clients come to us on organization saying, okay, Ayman, Schiffer, I have this data, I have this business, I need to fully automate my warehouses. But when you look at it, we find that, yeah, the data does not justify. Your growth plan, your next 5-6 years plan is not something that you really have to invest. But you have to consider the provision in your design that in the future that you can upgrade, you can grow. I mean, this mindset is a big challenge for us when it comes to the business perspective. But when business leaders, they need to decide, and who's giving them the feedback? The feedback comes from the functional level, where the people in the second level who's running the business on the ground, they should come up with the right analysis, right data, why do we need to automate in the logistics. And what the challenges I see there, that the lack of knowledge, it is there. The information, because when we talk about automation, automation is driven by information, by data, by figures. You cannot say, yes, I want to automate, to invest a couple of millions to build a fully automated warehouse because I want to do it, but this is a huge investment, will be reflected in your final product cost. And if you want to be competitive, you need to find the right solution that can make your business more efficient, where it can streamline your operation within the logistic puzzle. So I would say the challenges is, as I said, the mindset, the lack of the information. But again, maybe since 5 years, 6 years, before that was a really big challenge, but now I can see a big change in the mindset. People comes with the solid vision, what they want to do. Still, Saudi is emerging market when I compare it to Europe or to the West, but for us in the MEA region, Middle East and Africa, Saudi is the most advanced country when it comes to the automation and the logistics. And this would be maybe lead me to answer your second question about the buyers. And it's a mix between the buyers. We have the manufacturer, because when you talk a fully automated solution, it's much easier to implement it on a manufacturing facility. Because as a manufacturer, you have the control in your products, on your pallet, and you are the supplier to your warehouse. So because when we talk automation, automation means standards. You will have a limited flexibility. You need to know your business model for the next maybe 10 years because to justify your investment. So we have a manufacturer when we talk about Spimaco in Qasim al-Dawaiya, which is, they have a fully automated warehouse since 1988. And talk about Zamzam, the real project in Zamzam water, where when you go buy the water, it is all managed by a fully automated warehouse in the backside of the facility. You can see in Marai, they are implementing a fully automated warehouses. Currently, we are building a warehouse for a company called Gulfpack in Jubail, and they are in the plastic and the packaging, and it's a manufacturer. But now the shift has been moved because, as you just said, Mr. Muhammad as well, now all the clients, they want to focus on their core business. If my business is manufacturing, I want to hand over the logistic for someone else who's expert in it, yeah? And now that the 3PLs will come in place, when you talk about the Binzagar, which is the massive, huge project Binzagar in King Abdullah Economic City, and before that IKEA, and recently Nahdi, and all of them are 3PL and distribution centers, which is really high complicated when you compare it to the systems that can be supplied to the manufacturing. Mm-hmm. So yes, it's a mix between both, and the project that we're working on, we are analyzing with our client now to, that there are a huge pipeline, I would say, in Saudi, especially toward the automation, which is, in my opinion, a good step, because this will lift the standard of the market. It will add more input, more confidence to the others. Yes, let's invest. Let's just go toward automation. Let's study the idea, because this is the idea. As we said, we study first, we analyze. We don't encourage our client go and invest. You need really to come up with the information. Some of our clients, like in Nahdi or Binzagar, it took 2-3 years of analysis, analyzing what would be the right solution. Is this the solution meet my growth for the next 5-6 years, or not? Because you don't want to start with an investment now. In 3-4 years, you will stuck up. It's not yet good enough for us. Yeah, that's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ayman. So let me move to you, Mr. Turki. As we have seen, there are many efforts going on in the logistics sector, and as we all know, SIDF has been named as the main financial enabler for NIDLIB. So can you highlight, please, to us what are the new products, programs, tracks that have been introduced by SIDF to logistics sector?
Thank you, Michel. First, allow me to thank our guests and audience for being here with us. And of course, thanks also goes to the great team behind this wonderful initiative. Before speaking about the achievements, allow me to extend some gratitude to the great teams behind it. As we started with limited data, limited capabilities, lack of knowledge, uncertainty, where the whole country was undergoing transformation, and because of their efforts, we overcame those challenges. In 2018, SIDF mandate was changed to include logistics as one of the main sectors. And from that day, we started building our capabilities, and also in parallel started conducting sector studies to better understand the need of this sector and to identify the funding gaps. That's the first thing. In 2019, NIDLIB program was launched, which aims at transforming the kingdom into a global logistics hub. Based on this goal, SIDF support and lending policies were set. After also studying carefully the value chain of logistics, from cargo ships, air cargo, and port handling, infrastructure, rail transport, and so on. All of these sectors were studied carefully before setting those policies. Following these plans and strategy, SIDF approved today more than 30 projects valued at 1.8 billion riyal, with total loans of around 1 billion riyal. This is, of course, just the beginning, and in order to achieve the vision of becoming a global logistics hub, it is very essential to move faster, and also we expect more to come from the private sector, especially after we have more clarity today than before. And thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Turkey. Before we move, you mentioned that you have been engaged with the sector for maybe the last 4 or 5 years. So based on your exposure, your studies, and clients and businesses you have supported, what are the main challenges you are seeing there from a financial enabler perspective?
Yes. Let me divide the question into the challenges that we overcame and the challenges that we're still facing. As I mentioned, for the challenges that we have overcame, the limited data, limited capability at the beginning. However, on top of those challenges that we overcame was the absence of a clear sector strategy. Which was where it took the Ministry of Transportation up until the mid of 2021 to launch their strategy. That strategy actually was the missing part in our work, and kept us sometimes in uncertainties that didn't allow us to move ahead. For the challenge that we are still facing is the gap or the difference between what we are looking to and the status quo today. It is it's not easy to find high standard and high standards projects and that meets SIDF criteria today. We set those criteria based on a very ambitious goal, and so it's still there is a gap, a difference between what we're looking to and the status quo. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Mr. Turki. So let me get back to you, Mr. Mohammed. Since the launch of NIDLIB, we have seen that various governmental entities, we are talking about Saudi Customs, Mawane, Ministry of Transportation, Logistics Services, GACA, Saudi Post, all of these entities are working on establishing and developing new products and tracks to support the logistics sector. My question here is that how NIDLIB is ensuring the alignment and the coordination between those entities?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Can you hear me? Thank you so much for these questions. Today, NIDLIB is working in more than... It's not working yet. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Today, NIDLIB is working on 57 initiatives that assigned for different entities, including the Ministry of Transportation and Mawane and GACA and TGA and even SAR as a private sector company. We cannot really highlight all these initiatives, but I can touch bases on main initiatives that we are focusing to make sure the integration that really toward making the kingdom as a global logistic hub. For the Ministry of Transportation, we have main 2 initiatives that I can highlight on. First one is the Unified Logistic License that has been announced last year, where it focuses on unify the license that the private sector is looking for. There are big challenge before the 2030 vision for any private sector to get an investment or to register for any license. Today, this license, unified license, it will help the private sector to really facilitate the integration among the logistic entities to get as soon as possible the license. In addition, we have a single window platform that currently the ministry is working on. It will be launched inshallah first phase end of this year, and we expect the final phase it will be delivered in 2024, where this window will help all the private sector to get single window for getting all the license easily and quick. For Moana, we have more than 9 or 8 initiatives. It focuses on the infrastructures for the ports across the kingdom, including the power energy generations, bridge, streets. All of these is really a major to uplift and upgrade the infrastructure of Moana. Also, we are working in some initiative regarding adding services to Moana, including ship-to-ship on the west bound, and also bunkering of the fuel for the global international companies. For the rail, we have a major project that we hope, inshallah, it's been approved, which is called the land bridge, where it's connecting the west with the east. Today we have a railway, as I mentioned, we have more than 400,000 5 kilometers. It comes from the north to the Ras Al Khair and from Dammam to Riyadh. We are missing only the part from Riyadh to Jeddah to Kab, Yambu' and King Abdullah. Having this said about the land bridge, it will really change the global trade even services. Today, the major of shipping line, they have to enter the Gulf GCC, while in the future, when we have this, it's been approved. The study has been finalized. We are only waiting for the approval. Regarding GACA, we have really major initiative about the integrated logistic platform. It was announced last month. It was really opened by the Minister of Transportations and the Minister of Investment, where Abulat will be the first company that will join this logistic facility. There were a lot of incentives that will attract the foreign investors. For the Transport General Authority, we have really an initiative is regarding the academic Saudi logistic. You know, we cannot really uplift the logistics sector without having the talent people who can focus on the logistics. Last year, there were 300 trainees from different private sector has a partnership with this academic logistics. We hope the number to be increased. Even last week, they announced a couple program for leadership campaign for the logistics sectors where they have really big exposures. The integration between these entities is very essential for NIDLIB. We have a monthly, weekly meetings that we review the performance and even measure the outcomes of this initiative. There are a lot of initiatives, but I try to really capture on the main one of it. I hope I did not really forget any entity that I did not miss.
Thank you, Mr. Mohammed. You have covered most of them, I guess. Thank you. So let me move to you, Mr. Farouk. As we discussed and mentioned, becoming a global logistic hub is main objective not only for NIDLIB but for the Saudi Vision 2030. So my question here is, what do we need to do in order to develop a state-of-the-art logistic hub that is not only recognized nationally but even internationally?
It's a very broad question what we need to do, and I don't think we can answer it in a short span of time. But over the past 4 or 5 years, various government agencies, as Mr. Mohammed mentioned, and from Turkey as well before, as well as private sector, has been working collaboratively to develop a strategy to make Saudi Arabia a regional and global player in logistics industry. Now, a lot is being done with regards to incentive programs, with regards to encouragement of investment by both public and private sector. Where I feel we are falling short of is, okay, let me start it from there, is we are thinking of our efforts in incremental basis. We are not going to zero and redoing it. For example, I'll give, especially when it comes to softer issues, which does not require investment in hard infrastructure. One example is for custom regulation. All right. Brother Mom mentioned about the new logistics park at King Khalid, the international airport, where Apple is the investor and everything. So I was involved in that one. And obviously, since it's a special economic zone, the way we look at it from the custom angle or the process and procedure angle is that, okay, this is our existing system. What we need to change to facilitate the trade. I think that approach is actually holding us back. Where we need to see it, okay, this is something very new. What is the minimum that we need to do and forget the rest of it? Okay. So instead of doing changes in our existing system, which applies to the rest of the country, whenever we are creating and bringing in investment opportunities, everything, the system and rules and regulations to play along also to facilitate, to realize the original intent of that project. And this is one area I think where we need to do a bit more work. It's not that we change our existing system to, right? We establish a new system. Now, Tabadul and Mawane, Saudi Customs, GACA, they are all working towards it. But I think it has to be taken up holistically, okay? And instead of changing. So this is a big difference where within what we are trying to do in Saudi Arabia and where when we were talking previously about in rest of the region or other globally, how things are working. It's a concept of a more of everything is free. Okay, now when you want to operate, okay, these are certain rules and regulations you have to follow. In Saudi Arabia, we are still looking at it, okay, these are the rules and regulations of Saudi Arabia, but if you come into this particular zone, this is the incentive. So if you want to create brand Saudi, okay, this approach needs to change slightly, okay, and we are still holding on to some of our traditional conventional relics, which we need to think. Second element of that is that with players who are not entrenched in other facilities in the region, it is easy to make a decision. So I think some of the success stories which Mamane has come up with the new logistics park, with the shipping lines which are entering into the logistics space like Maersk, CMS, CGM, even Hapag-Lloyd to a certain extent, and MSC investing in King Abdullah port. So these are already, because they didn't have any entrenched investments in the region. But the existing players who are already somewhere else, we need to give them a small nudge, push them a little more, and make them comfortable, not only with regards to that investment proposal, but with regards to overall Saudi standing globally from political perspective, from a brand perspective, that Saudi is open. It's not that you create an incentive because you get an incentive because you are investing, because Saudi Arabia is the place to be. So this is where I think we need to work a bit more. And that's where LogiPoint has been helping and working it out. So when Amazon came into the region for the first time, with them, we set up our first facility. And similarly now, Aramix moved away from leasing to build-to-suit facilities and everything. So they chose LogiPoint. So we are facilitating that as our role, to play our role in this transformation. But I think still a lot needs to be done overall with regards to how we perceive our country.
Thank you, Mr. Farouk. Mr. Abdullah, if we want to give a highlight regarding the know-how and technology, your company has been in a long relationship with Ketonati, which is one of the oldest logistics service providers. So the question here is that, are we getting the know-how correctly? And what do we need to do in order to make sure we are localizing the technology?
Okay. Let me put this into two parts. The reason we had a partnership with this company is that we literally wanted the know-how from them. We have our own reputation in the market. We know the market very well, but the know-how is that exactly what we need. And it's not about getting the know-how and getting the business. It's about I will just phrase something from the master agreement plan between both parties, is that the business must be run by locals. So it's not us having a JV with a European company and bringing all the technologies and the know-how from there. Yes, we do bring the knowledge and the technology from there, but we also at the same time train our people to be leaders in the future. We did not play a significant role in the past 10 years, I would say, but now we are very keen into that part, especially with the ultimate support that we are getting from the HR ministry and HADF, especially HADF. We are having a very long workshops with them, and we are preparing something for our employees, because let's be honest, in Saudi, no one is very interested into working with a logistics, petrochemical logistics service provider. They're all interested in SABIC, Aramco, SIDF, etc., etc. So it's my responsibility, or it's our responsibility to give them the interest of being an employee of this company. So we came up with lots and lots of initiatives. One of them is that an MIT program, Management International Trainees program, that already started, that in collaboration with the University of Houston, University of Antwerp, and a technical college in Singapore. And we had a big portion, for the first time, a big portion of the seats available for this program are from Saudi. So yes, we are getting the know-how now. We are moving aggressively towards this direction, because if this is not the case, then we'll end up having no Saudis in the company, which is not the goal, which is not one of the main goals of 2030 visions. But at the same time, you don't want to jeopardize your quality and your safety. So you need to do it very cautiously, and you have to, you must have a very long-term plan towards this. At the same time, we are adapting programs from the partner itself. So whatever applications that are applicable there, because at the same, eventually it is one company. Yes, we are in partnership, but it's one company. And I would like to highlight one thing here, is that it is the only JV that Katunatsi is having in the world. The only JV that they are having is in Saudi Arabia, and the reason behind this is that they wanted a reliable partner, and because we have a very huge market and very huge potential, and at the same time they wanted something very sustainable. And if you're not running the business with your locals, then it's not sustainable, because no one is going to come from outside and spend their lives in Saudi, except the Saudis themselves. So yes, this is the direction of the company, and in the very near future, 2 or 3 more initiatives that are going to be coming, inshallah, into life.
Inshallah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Abdullah. Let me move to you, Mr. Ayman. Since we are talking about technology, we cannot miss the automation. So maybe we can say automation nowadays is the name of the game, and technology is playing a critical role when it comes to the transformation of logistics sector. So my question here is, where do we stand now in terms of automation and technology adoption in logistics sector?
Okay. Thank you, Mishal. Where we stand, again, it's not about where we stand. I think this is the normal life cycle for the automation in emerging countries, in an emerging business. I mean, in the logistics, when we talk about Saudi or the region, if we compared, example, not just for Europe. In Europe, it's a normal practice because there are many reasons. When we talk about the land cost, the labor, the efficiency, the standard they have set there. This is what they are used to do this automation. But when we come to the region here, it's not really a huge gap. Still, I would say from low to medium. But there is a lot of improvement, and this is maybe what Mr. Farouk said when we were talking about build-to-suit warehouses. Now we see that many of our client, they want to build their warehouse based on their requirement. This was not the case before. The case before they rented the warehouses, they build the warehouse, then they think about the automation. Now we are telling our clients, the organization, the companies, no, you should design it from inside out, not from outside in. So you need to know your requirement, you need to know your future demand, and based on that, you design your warehouses. And I think we have many cases, even with LegoPoint, with many of their clients, they are building their facility within their properties, and we are helping these clients to design from scratch. After the design, they build the building around the racking, regardless if it's automation, it is conventional, if it's semi-automation. So automation, yes, it's a game changer. I would say that the steps toward the automation need to be very careful, step by step, because you don't want at the end of the day to build a white elephant. Because yes, automation is nice, maybe the money is there, the investment is there, but to build fully automated warehouses and you cannot operate, and maybe you don't have the demand or the market demand to operate this warehouse, to be like a white elephant that's standing for a long while and just without any benefit. So I think Saudi in the region stand very well in the automation. When you talk about MIA, again, I'm not comparing to the West because this will come to Saudi because this is how it started. I mean, Schaefer is since 1937 in the world. And in Saudi, yes, the first project was 1988 with the Spimaco, but from, let's say, 2014, where we are actively here in Saudi under the umbrella of MISA as a direct SSI Schaefer office, we can see a big improvement. And one of the changes, I would say, that educating the market is important, and this is what we see. I mean, we talk to the business owners, automation, why I should do, when you analyze it from cons and pros, what's on the long term, what I could have. Now, the game before, when we talk about the low cost of the labor or land, is not there anymore. This was, yes, maybe 5-6 years ago, but now it's not about the cost of the labor, it's about the efficiency. And this is what proved during the COVID-19, because yes, you have the material, you have the warehouses, but you don't have the capability to deliver. We are talking about the first day, same day delivery. If we look about the fulfillment service providers, they're really stuck because yes, they need to throw the labor intense, but it's not enough to fulfill the requirement of the people. That's why I think that the lesson learned over the last 4 years, and we see now a high tendency toward automation or hybrid solution, I would say. I don't want to say always automation, because this is not the right solution. If I look at the Nahdi example, which is really a very great project for Saudis, like a landmark in the country, across the region, because it is one of its first in the pharma distribution. But the system is just a hybrid solution. You have the big and bulky, you have the standard racking, you have fully automated solution. The operation that Nahdi used to do in 3 days, they do it in 3 hours now. You can just imagine the gap. But that's why, I mean, the gap is closing now in Saudi. The new business owners, they think toward the future, and this is what was missing. They are building operation that can suit for 2-3 years, or let's say unknown. If we want to invest, we invest, yeah, but what will come next in 2-3-4 years? And this is what we are telling the people, our partners. Think, analyze, then you decide your investment. Okay? Regardless if you have the money, if you don't have it, but you need to justify it. And this is where I think the most of the effort need to be done, and the collaboration from all the parties. I'm talking about the government, the private sector, the suppliers, to set the rules or the regulation. Okay, if I want to do this direction, this is what I should consider. Yep.
So they look at it from a strategic perspective rather than short-term.
Yes, indeed. Automation is not a short-term. Yes, I mean, this is actually one of our challenges, which I did not mention. 30% of our partners in Saudi or clients, they have a certain planning where we need to do this and let's just study and think and plan. But 70% is still doing a rush, fast, quick project, which is painful exercise for the long term. So that's why I'm talking about the education in the market that, yes, you should not take your step now in a rush or in a quick decision. You should be rational, think about it, plan it, so you can have a longer plan and not just for short. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Ayman. So, Mr. Turki, since we are talking about new technologies and new investments, sometimes we hear that SIDF takes longer time than commercial banks when it comes to the processing time. So, can you highlight to us the efforts that have been taken by SIDF to overcome this challenge?
Thank you, Mishal. This is a great question. The SIDF is a development fund that finance almost every economically viable project and only economically viable projects. And to reach this conclusion, it is very critical to study all the aspects of the project: marketing, technical, and financial. And this is the main reason why SIDF evaluation takes time. But what happens is that a lot of our clients reach out to SIDF at a very early stage, where that level of due diligence, they haven't completed that level of due diligence. Here, they start back and forth while the minimum requirements are not available. So, however, for a comprehensive evaluation, for applicants with comprehensive and bankable visibility study, we are committed to evaluate their application in less than 4 months.
And I think this is considered a good time when you compare it with development banks around the world, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
4 months, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Turki, and thank you all for this fruitful discussion. However, due to the time limitations, if you allow me to open the floor for the audience in case we have any question. Please.
Assalamu alaikum, Mohammed Al-Ghamdi from Market Studies. Thank you very much for this insightful discussion. My question is to Mr. Mohammed Shimri. Let me start by saying that we definitely do appreciate NIDLIP's initiatives and positive impact over the past few years. So I do want to tackle the subject of free trade zones. We can see that free trade zones are spread across major logistical hubs such as Dubai and Hong Kong, and how it's beneficial for them in terms of attracting investors. So my question is, how many free trade zones are Saudi Arabia are planning to have?
Thank you so much. It's a great question. Maybe you heard the last couple of months the announcement of it. It's been approved from higher level. We are targeting more than, I can say, 7. Initially, 3. It can be announced soon. I cannot really guarantee, but it's already approved. We are targeting, I think, Cake and Jazan, in addition to Ras Al Khair. These are the 3 initial plan. It's still yet under approval, but as a free zone, it has been aligned and approved from the higher level. This, as you know, without having a free zone, you cannot really compete the market in the GCC, even in the globe. We understand the importance of the free zone. We hope, inshallah, by the first quarter next year, inshallah, it will be announced.
Inshallah.
Why not position in Jeddah? Jeddah is our gateway. Why not to start with Jeddah?
I was not involved in that. There is a team that led by the Ministry of Transportation, which is the logistic platform. We are targeting 59 logistic platform across the kingdom. So far, it's announced 8 platform Even the free zone, it is include a lot of parties. Jeddah, I cannot guarantee, but it might be part of it. But still, it's confidential. It's not being published. Even the 3.1 that I mentioned.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. First of all, thank you very much for this session. I had a question for Mr. Ayman in terms of automated warehousing. You mentioned about 30% and 70% of your customers. Overall, what do you see here in Saudi Arabia? Because we are seeing, for example, in neighboring countries, I will not talk about Europe, but I will talk about, for example, Dubai and UAE and other GCC countries, that the automation warehousing are now becoming quite simple. I mean, anywhere you go, you see a lot of automation warehousing, where still we are talking about, as you mentioned, 3 years planning for Saudi Arabia. Where do you think we are heading to? I mean, are we still competing with the neighboring countries in terms of automation warehousing, or we are, let's say, simply late on this?
Thank you for this question. I would say Saudi is one step ahead of the others. I mean, usually as SSI Schaefer, as a global player in this automation, we are involved in all of these projects. I mean, if we need to count them by number, you will find Saudi is by far is the highest in this automation level. I mean, I think there is in Saudi minimum 7 or to 8 fully automated warehouses, which is not a small number compared to the region. But if we go to the neighbor's country, this is, we're talking about 1 to 2 digits, just 1 or 2 to 3 projects. And when you talk automation, again, there is automation in the logistics and automation in the IT level. When you talk about automation, sometimes it's just only a small conveyor, you can call it automation. But for us, this is very small, straightforward project. But I'm repeating myself again that Saudi is one step ahead here. And that's why, as SSI Schaefer, and I think other companies, the companies are a global service provider in the automation, they will come soon to Saudi. That's why Schaefer invested more in Saudi more than any other country, because Saudi is promising. Saudi is the growth, the sustainable growth is there. And that's why we are talking our peers in the market, our industrial peers in Europe as well. They should really think just to move here, because look, I'm looking about the RSG, let's see Global or NEOM. They're already starting this discussion, and we are very close in discussion with them because they want to explore what we can do, what we can improve. And I can tell you what once this project take place, it will be by far ahead any other country. I mean, this is not just only a word, but it's really reality, and this is what we see here.
Thank you, Mr. Ayman. Maybe we can take one last question.
السلام عليكم. صالح المحيسن من قسم المشاريع. I have a question actually for Abdullah and Ayman as well. Speaking of automation and full automated warehouse, is there any like when you talk to your clients and new clients, or do you do like some financial justifications for them, analysis how they kind of save the cost overall?
Yeah, I think the question has 2 parts. I mean, when it comes to the operation, I think Abdullah can answer this question. But when we talk about the system selection, again, we usually encourage the client to have a supply chain consultant with you, because see, you need a technical consultant and you need a business. So you need to start with the business consultant who can really explore the opportunities you for the market, where to focus. And once these numbers is justified, then the technical consultant, Schaefer or others, can translate it in terms of logistics, in terms of pallet, in terms of sizes. And based on that, we can develop a concept. And with this concept, we can provide like a budgetary prices where you can say, okay, this is my total investment. Yeah. But when it comes to ROI, I mean, in terms of operation, which is the most important, because the reason you want to just justify to your management why I need to go to elevation, to automation, then I say, okay, this is the number of labor I need, and this is before and after, and this is where comes the 3PL service provider to analyze. Yeah.
In terms of financial studies, we don't literally do financial studies, but we do compare what the business is going to be like, fully automated or not fully automated. So as we speak right now, we are working on several proposals that we're going to propose to customers to come and invest in our yard and part of in our terminal. And part of this is we are offering also in the future plan of automated warehouses. So we are literally showing customers that this is the cost if you are having a fully automated warehouse, and this is the cost if you're not having a fully automated warehouse. Both have goods and bads, as everything does, but in the fully automated warehouse, you really minimize the error. So the human error factor is almost none. And in terms of products and in terms of orders that are going to customer, you really want to reduce that human error factor, because if it happens, it's catastrophic. So yes, we do the studies, not financially, but we do the studies. We do compare, and we put on the table to our customers what are the differences if you're having fully automated warehouse or a normal warehouse.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Abdullah. At the end of this discussion, I would like to express my thanks and appreciation to the panelists for the knowledge they have shared with us. My thanks are also extended to the audience. So thank you all for your time, and see you inshallah in next events.
Thank you all. Now we invite you to take a 5-minute break before we resume with our last session. Thank you. Dear guests, welcome back. Join me in welcoming the panelists for the second logistics panel discussion. The role of ports and shipping sector in global trade, with the moderators, Mr. Saud bin Bakhit, market consultant at SIDF. The panelists, Mr. Hisham Al-Ansari, regional manager at MSC. Mr. Rayyan Al-Bakri, advisor to the president at Mawani. Mr. Edwin Leong, CFO of Saudi Global Ports. Mr. Jade Dawabi, manager at Saudi Libre. And finally, Mr. Mohammed Al-Bassam, senior portfolio manager at SIDF. I hope you have a knowledgeable discussion.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to welcome you all to our session. And I want to extend my gratitude to our attendees, online viewers, also panelists. The main objective of this session is to explore the shipping industry and market trends. Basically, we're going to have a Q&A session at the end of the session. Now we're going to start with Mr. Hisham. Mr. Hisham, can you please tell us the ocean freight industry and the global trade and MSC success story?
Yes. Thank you very much to host us. First of all, it's a great pleasure to be here. I will start with global shipping. As everybody knows, the supply chain, let's say, and the global supply chain is heart of everything. I mean, you produce, you manufacture, you consume. The shipping and the global supply chain is in middle of everything, let's say. Just to highlight few numbers, actually, we know already that every year something like 12 billion metric tons of cargo is being transported by various means, let's say, in the sea. And if you just take proportion of this, you will find out that for every person living on Earth, there is 1.5 ton of cargo which is moving, which is huge, actually. I mean, if you look at, let's say, other industries, you will see that, indeed, I mean, shipping, ocean freight, at the end of the day, is a big part of the global turnover of the money. In terms of money, let's say, you are talking about between 13 and 14 trillions of dollars every year spent in the freight, let's say, in the supply chain, global, let's say, shipping, and so on and so on. And this is all what we are talking about is in terms of, let's say, ocean freight, everything moving through sea. Of course, I mean, we are very much adapted to container business because we see containers very, very often in our ports, on the roads. But the container business is something like 18% overall of the total economy of the shipping line or the ocean business. You have, of course, crude oil, you have iron ore, you have the feed stock of a lot of things that is moving over the ocean freight. Just to highlight a little bit, everything is good, everything is nice, nobody is noticing anything. But if you come to problems, like last year we had the closure of Suez Canal, and with closure of Suez Canal for just 6 days, everybody knew that what is the importance of the shipping and what will happen if only one passage, let's say, in the world stops. And we saw that, I mean, during that period of time, we had a lot of, let's say, hiccups in the whole supply chain of, let's say, the global manufacturing, the global delivery. Today morning they were talking about on-time delivery, on-time delivery, and so on and so on. So it's a very important industry which links actually everything together at the end of the day. And okay, part of it is not seen, but let's say it is moving the whole concept of global supply and demand. This is first part of your question. Second part of question is what we are doing as MSC and what is the success story of MSC. A private company, we are working, a Swiss-based company actually, our head office is in Geneva, 52 years of work. Today MSC is the largest shipping line in the world with more than 730 ships. Containerized business for sure. But also we have cruise, as everybody knows, we have terminal operating, we have logistics arms, transportation, railway operation, and so on and so on. The success for MSC is what we are always proud of, that we came to this stand of, let's say, being the leading shipping line in the world by ourselves. MSC did not buy or take over any other shipping line, so what we built was built by ourselves. It was an organic growth which we have done, and I mean the company has grown to the extent that today we are serving more than 155 countries in the world. For MSC in Saudi Arabia, we started serving Saudi ports in 1996. And I just give you two numbers, and then you can judge where do we stand. The weeks that we have started in June 1996, we were doing about 60 containers every week to the Dammam port. And last year, in 2021, we have completed 2.1 million containers just in King Abdullah port in Rabat. So you can see the jump that we have had from just 60 containers to 2.1 million containers in a span of 27 years.
So we can say that the jump is mainly influenced by demand, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, by everything, actually, by the services, by global coverage that we have, by the logistics, let's say, backstage that we offer. Today we offer logistics services, let's say, in 80 countries globally. And we can practically move anything from anywhere to anywhere, whether it's a normal dry containers, reefer containers. And then we have, let's say, specialized products. For example, we have a section for break bulk and heavy lifts containers. We have a section for pharmaceutical. We have a section for fruit. We have a section for... So being more specialized of what people want, as a, let's say, putting supply and demand together and then working on it in terms of what is the customer's need, and then you provide tailor-made solution for them.
Perfect. Now we're moving to Mowane with Mr. Rayyan. Could Could you please tell us the geographical importance and the strategic locations of Saudi ports?
Thank you, Saud, and everyone available here today. Mawani, or let's say first Saudi Arabia, actually is blessed with the location that it had on the world map, where we are actually in the middle of between Asia, East Asia, and Africa, Europe, and Americas. So we are in the heart of the movements of any trade that happens. Being in this role and capitalizing on it as Mawani. Today in Mawani we play a couple of major roles, and that is going to change in the near future. Today we are a regulator, we are a policymaker, we are asset owner, and we are actually operators. And that model used to work well in the past to build the capacity, the capability, the infrastructure, and everything else. But now when we see the model and the ecosystem has changed, so we are moving towards carving out the part of regulation and policy making into an entity, and then establishing a company that owns assets and owns the contracts of the concessions. And why I mentioned that, because we are now in a process, or we have been since 10 years back and more, in a process where we are going into partnerships with operators. So before we used to be a landlord and we gave a contract of operation. Nowadays we don't do that. We go into concession, BOT, win-win, with revenue shares, with capability building, with capacity enhancement, with even regulation enhancement as well. For that helped a lot in enhancing our position and capitalizing on it geographically in the world. Today, under the portfolio of Mawani, we have 8 Saudi ports that we own and manage. NEOM used to be the 9th a couple of months back, but since August, we have given Tiba to NEOM fully under their ownership, asset and port, including the contracts in that port. So we are now having Jeddah, Yanbu, Jizan, we have Jubail, Ras Al Khair, we have Dammam, and we are also having new concessions in the near future for the multi-purpose, which is the general cargo, the Ro-Ro, the break bulk, the bulk, and we have already 3 major terminal concessions for containers, and that are with very strong players. So Mawani role today, and we have identified that clearly, we are an enabler to the trade, facilitator, we are an infrastructure developer, so we don't own business and we don't want to interfere in that business. We just want to make sure that shipping lines, terminal operators, exporters, importers, logistic companies have all what they need and what it takes for their success in our facilities as an integral player in the value chain of the supply chain and logistics sector.
Thank you very much. Now we're moving with Mr. Edwin. Could you please introduce us to Saudi Global Ports? Also, could you emphasize on the responsibilities of the ports as a port operator?
Thank you, Saud. Again, it's my pleasure to be here. I was just sharing with some of the SIDF that in the first session, I've already learned before I share perspectives, so this is a really great forum. And really thank you for giving the opportunity to share our perspectives, as to exchange ideas with this panel as well, this esteemed panel. So before I begin, the pressure is up. I have a customer and I have my regulator here, so I have to be careful with what I say. No.
It's all right, we're all here friends.
No, just joking. So I think to introduce Saudi Global Ports is probably maybe not a familiar name to those who are not in Dammam. We are majority owned by majority owned by PIF, and we have a technical partner from Singapore called PSA. So PSA is a leading global port operator. It has terminals inland, sea, logistics park, and recently as well a 3PL. From my perspective, I'm only going to concentrate on the port sector because this is where I'm more familiar with. Saudi Global Ports, or SGP, is the container terminal operator in Dammam Seaport, and recently, from March this year, also the operator for Riyadh Dry Port. And from here, we actually move containers, from Dammam all the way to the eastern region and to the capital as well. What is a port? So, I have my colleagues here who form the long line of the supply chain, and we are really a node or a connection point. And this connection point actually is a bit more stressful as well. It requires as minimal stay as possible. Nobody wants to stay too long in a port. So you can imagine shipping lines will say, please minimize my port stay. Right? I don't want to stay too long. Right? Customs authority and brokers say, please clear the cargo as quickly as you can. Right? And you have also, the transporters, or even the cargo owners, please clear my cargo out so I can have the cargoes inside there. So if you think of it, then the port is really a connection point between various transport methods, primarily in Davao Seaport is a vessel, to another transport. And we have to do this in the shortest time as we can, right? And from here you understand that we really need to listen to our customers and our stakeholders as well. And this is where our responsibility is. We have to make sure that we can handle the cargo fast, reliable, safe, right? And even in a certain way, as what the Crown Prince has mentioned, resilient. I think over the last few years we have seen changes, especially COVID, and we had to adapt with the partnership of Mawani to learn how to shift our resources around so that in the time of pandemic when nobody can move, cargo can still go in for consumption of food, for consumption of other materials as well. So this is something that everybody expects as a port. You won't notice it when times are going well. When times are going bad, you say, hey, what are you doing? Right? So this is where our main responsibility is to make sure that cargo or trade flows as smooth as possible.
Thank you very much. So we understand from this that basically cargoes are in operations are very critical. So it costs you if you have any error on these matters, right? Perfect.
Yes, that's right.
Mr. Jade, could you please tell us in regard to port equipment, we understand that there are different mechanisms to handle them. Could you please enlighten us regarding why are they unique?
Sure. Sorry, I think it's strong. Thank you for having me here first. Basically, port equipment are made for one purpose, which is to transfer the cargo. As Edwin said before, the ports were basically, they are the gateway of the economy, especially during COVID, for example. Port equipment were the backbone of the gateways. So basically, during COVID in most countries, maritime equipment, the factories and the staff, the service engineers were considered essential staff, just like doctors, because you can imagine if you had a crane which is supposed to offload medical equipment, which is down, your whole economy is down, your healthcare is down, everything is down. That's how important it is to have a functioning equipment. It's also, whatever the port equipment does, no other equipment can do. So it's very important that basically if you compare it a little bit to construction equipment, let's say you have a port crane which is down, you cannot go and get another port crane from somewhere else. Whereas if you have an excavator which is down, you have 1 million of them in the country. In all of Saudi, if you want to give rough numbers, you have about 300, 350, maybe up to 400 port cranes between the quay side and the yard side. Whereas you can find, again, in the construction sector, you can find all these in one construction yard. So it's a very, very specialized type of equipment that requires also very specialized skills. So if you have, let's say, 300-400 machines like this in the whole country, you can imagine that the pool of engineers is also very, very small. Us as Libera, we've been trying to find service engineers with experience on our products, and we've gotten about 150 CVs, less than 5% had experience in ports. And which is also a very big challenge for companies like us, that we need to find the right staff, because the downtime is extremely expensive. The downtime is catastrophic. If your port crane is down, your port is down, the whole economy gets affected eventually. Of course, maybe make it a little bit bigger than it is, but it is quite important. If it's down, you cannot fix it. You have a few hours to fix it. So there's a lot of supply chain that goes in the background, like having parts available, having enough staff available, taking enough risk to have your staff trained, factory trained, etc. So this is some of the things that we need to take into consideration when it comes to port equipment, why it is so unique, basically.
All right. So this leads us to another question. What's Libya's value proposition?
Us as a manufacturer, basically, we have, I would say, I don't want to go too much into details, but basically our core values as a company, I will mention 2 or 3 of them. One of the most important ones is that we are independent. Liber is 100% family owned. What does this mean is that we are independent financially, independent operationally, and technically speaking. So whatever decision we take based on what the market dictates and not what the investor dictates. One of the very, very good, strong examples is that during COVID and even during the financial crisis in 2008 and before that, no Liber employee, for example, was let go because of the bad financial situation. So this is part of our value proposition. Another part is actually the innovation in the employees. So us as original equipment manufacturer, OEM, and especially in the port sector, what we offer is not, we offer a solution and we don't offer just equipment. So we offer the equipment and we offer the support that comes after it. In Saudi Arabia, we've been here for 40 years. Our equipment have been here for more than 20 years. And we've been here long enough because we are here to support the customers, whether technically or whether even this is something we're going to get to eventually a bit later regarding the automation, but if you are requesting for a machine that we don't believe that this is the right machine for you, we will advise you against it. So we are also sort of consultants for you. So we offer a full-fledged solution to our clients, which is not something that everyone is able to.
Perfect. Now we're moving back to Moana. As we understand that NIDLIB's vision in 2030 targets Saudi ports to be one of the highest in the ranks. Could you please shed light on what efforts are taken into place to improve the port's infrastructure capacity and efficiencies?
Well, we have a very ambitious targets, to be honest. And what we have done in the last couple of years, we have the infrastructure are split into 2. We have one, the hard infrastructure, and then we have the systems, KPIs, performances, all the things, the regulation that enables the ease of trade, the support functions within the ports to be able to attract global players and to enable terminals, shipping lines, logistic companies to come and do their business within the ports. So in the last couple of years, we have introduced, for example, the truck management system in our ports. And that, as much as it had as a rough start, system-wise, adaptation-wise, implementation-wise, as much as it proved success so far in terms of saving time and turnarounds for the trucking companies and making the job of the terminal operators easier and the traders easier as much. Before we had a truck that enters the port, they only used to make 1 trip a day since morning until evening. Now each truck can make 3 to 5 trips a day, depends on their efficiency in handling their business. We have also enhanced our free time limits within the ports. For example, before we were focusing much on containers, and we did all what it needs to attract best-in-class terminal operators, shipping lines, to have their operation smooth for the sake of the business itself. So the importers and exporters can feel that they have a proper business without any rollovers or delays. Then we realized that the general cargo and break bulk was always the second before. So nowadays we are having both priorities on the same level. So first thing to do, we had improved our free time to importer exporters from 5 days to 21 days for them to be able to plan properly their business, to have their cargo facilitated in a better manner if they want it to be imported or exported. We also have had a very strong, let's say, service level agreements with our terminal operators and government entities who works inside the port, where everything has to have a solution, have to have escalation matrices, have to be customer-centric, and that is the essence of what we are doing in the last couple of years. So we are becoming more customer-centric in terms of what they need, and we are developing what they need in terms of again, regulation, systems, and infrastructure, whether it's hard or it is soft infrastructure.
Thank you very much. Now we're moving to Hisham. Could you please shed some light on the importance of Saudi Arabia market from shipping line perspective?
Yes, thank you very much. Actually, when you come and look at the geography of the Middle East, you see that there are a couple of big economies within Middle East. Saudi Arabia is one of them in terms of not only the current, let's say, perspective of what we are doing today, but also in terms of what you are planning and what you are seeing from now till, let's say, 2030 and even beyond 2030. Normally what we do as shipping lines, we see the economy, we see the GDP of the country, we plan our vessels, our containers, even the staff according to what is the economy of the country and how is the economy of the country moving in, let's say, 3 to 5 years. For Saudi, let's say, since a couple of years, the indicators are all showing positively to a great extent, let's say, especially this year, that indeed, I mean, we have a very strong economy which based on not only just import and export, because, I mean, you will see in a lot of countries that they are based on just trading, that, for example, they have a very strong trading when the economy environment is good, but then if you have downfall, you will be hit immediately with the downfall of economy and with the number of shipments that is affected. Why? Because the trade is based instantly on businesses that is moving, for example, like what is happening in Jebel Ali and Dubai, on just purely trading. Whereas here in Saudi Arabia, the story is different. I mean, either we have a long-term industry, you just see it in what is happening in Jubail and Yambo, for example, or you see a very ambitious plans of projects like what is happening in Neom, what is happening in Red Sea, for example, south of Riyadh, with the new cities, with the new projects that are coming, which drags actually the demand for shipping in general and supply chain for many years to come. So it is not an instant thing which you are a little bit afraid that if you put your resources, you could be just going against the wave. But it is really something that you can plan. And I mean, on regular meetings that we have with our headquarters in Geneva, we always mention this, that at the end of the day, it's important that if we deploy something, a service, a number of containers, staff, infrastructure, it is for a long-term planning, which is happening exactly here in Saudi Arabia, in terms of all the projects available, all the infrastructure projects which are coming on and up, and then you have a steady business. For example, we are now talking to NEOM authorities in terms of what we want to do as a shipping line to serve the area. Same thing in various other projects. So it's a long-term planning with a strong economy and backbone of economy that it is, let's say, can guarantee you as shipping line a constant, continuous business. This is as far as, let's say, import and export is concerned. But also we have an element called transshipment, which is moving the containers throughout the ports, which is also very strong in the Red Sea area, which also showed with a model of like King Abdullah Port in Rabagh, that yes, if we could do it and we do it properly, then we can beat a lot of old, let's say, businesses that was running through ports like Salalah or Jebel Ali, and then make the business turn around within Saudi Arabia in a quite bigger scale, let's say.
Amazing. So you mentioned Jebel Ali, which is nice. I'm going to lead this question to Mr. Edwin. Well, we have benchmarks from Dubai, Singapore, also Shanghai ports. Could you please, from your experience, explain what are the reasons of their success?
Okay, thank you. I think among the ports you mentioned, of course, Singapore is probably the largest transshipment port with many connections. For PSA as well, the other flagship is in Antwerp, so that's also the second largest port in Europe after Rotterdam. I will share from that perspective, but I believe most of them would have the same characteristics as I mentioned. I think first one, partnership is really important. I think we all acknowledge that we are one part of the supply chain, right? And we need to work together. I think in this regard, where Singapore is, they work tightly with the Maritime Port Authority, just like how we work with Mawani as well, to, in a way, the cargo is just a physical flow, but there's always another overlay called the information flow, right, where you clear your customs, your cargo, and so on. So you need to match them together. And this is where sometimes certain processes could take longer. I think Mawani has presently and in the past worked with us to facilitate discussions with various authorities to smoothen that process. So this is really one part that's really important, and it's not just from the regulator, the shipping lines. So sometimes shipping lines need certain automated reports, or even the consignees need some visibility. You work with them to give them what they need. The second one, which I think I will explain a bit briefly because I know Mawani is working on it as well, is on ecosystem. So ecosystem is one level higher than partnership. Ecosystem really means you design something where people can exchange information, right, or have the needed facilitation to clear their cargo. So even within, say, Singapore, there's a port net where the traders or even the brokers, or the shipping lines and ports are on the same system where they can share the same bit of information. I think when you have a platform of this nature, the truck management system is really one such way of doing it. Tabadu is another such way of doing it. So when you have it on the aggregate level where you are able to share the information when needed and in a secured manner, trade just moves faster. It's really beyond the physical cargo, it's really the information flow as well. So this is quite important.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I would love to move with Jade regarding the automation of ports. We understand that many industries are shifting to the automation, and we've got an example of Singapore as well. So since they're fully automated, do you believe this is the new trend and we're going to move there soon?
Talking about trend is a bit of a big word, because the data, actually, the latest data that we have is that only 4% of ports in the world, there's only 53 ports in the whole world which are either fully automated or semi-automated. The reason is that there are a lot of conditions that need to come together to make it a viable business. So that doesn't mean that every port requires automation. And out of these ports, about 60% are located between Europe and Asia. In the Middle East, I think only Abu Dhabi port is only semi-automated. I'm not sure about any other ports in the area. So talking about the trend now is a bit early. However, there are definitely conditions that need to be fulfilled. For example, the advantage of automation basically comes where you have high labor costs. If you want to talk about Saudi, you don't really have that now. It also when you have very high volumes. Also if you have lots of transshipment, for example, where you need a complicated ecosystem or a complicated logistical let's say setup, basically, it helps to have an automated terminal, and depends where you want to automate it. Are we automating the front part, which is the key, where you're loading, offloading the containers, or you're automating the back part, which is the yard, which makes much more financial sense as it is now. The investment is quite high, and I think someone's mentioned before that it's not something you want, it's something you need. And for now, it depends really on the ports, but based on what we have now today, it doesn't look like, especially for Saudi, automation is definitely needed. But if we continue with the trend of turning Saudi Arabia into a logistics center, into a transshipment center, everything, then when the volumes will come up, then it would definitely start making sense, because it will lower downturn, it will lower maintenance costs, and it will make it much more efficient and much more attractive to shipping lines, to ports, and to customers together.
All right, thank you very much.
Sure.
Now we're moving to our colleague Mohammed Al-Bassam. Could you please introduce us to the role and responsibilities of portfolio managers and also explain the disbursement process in this IDF?
Thank you, Suad. So, as previously mentioned by my colleague Turkey, after the journey ends with the relationship management, after signing the loan agreement, the journey of the client continues with the portfolio management. Our main role is divided by three parts: disbursement, following up with the loan, and finally the final repayment, which is the end of the journey. To the second part about the disbursement, SIDF typically disperse, they do reimbursement against cost claims and any cost by the client, but there are more conventional ways that we try to keep up with the market. We try to help our client. Like, for example, we do letter of credit disbursement, which is a way faster method to get the loan and utilize the loan amount to operate the project. So our role basically is to follow up with the client and their second part of their journey. We follow up with their requests, we satisfy the conditions, and we until the loan is fully repaid.
Thank you very much. I believe I'm going to conclude the session with the last further.
Because it's a knowledge sharing session, and I was inspired by the talk a little bit about why automation or the trend and the transshipment and the gateway differences between import-export and having transshipment in the ports, and how it makes more sustainability element to our report, or make it resilience to accept business despite the fact that we go through different environmental changes and things like that. We went to Hamburg, Rotterdam, Antwerp in the last couple of months, and for the trend for the automation, for example, true, there is no yet a trend, but however, the driver changed. So today you find countries moving towards automation for the sake of environmental element and not for the sake of cost element or things like that. Those are factors. However, the environmental is the driver today. When we went to Antwerp and Rotterdam, and who they have actually automated terminals and not ports. And why I say that, I'll come back to this. They have automated terminals that are managed completely on automation base. And you see the flow, it's amazing. Before, we as operational guys in terminals and shipping lines, we thought that this is not practical when we was thinking about that in 2012, 2010 in our ports in Saudi. But when we went there during Corona and after, post-Corona, the shipping lines in Europe, they prefer to go to automated terminals rather than going to a normal container terminal. And the reason for that they have a sustainable movement. Now, how do they measure that in terms of automation? They look at the neutral carbonization element. So they reduce carbon emissions at the maximum levels possible. And how do they do that? They have to have the batteries. So automation to us, it's more of electrical. It's batteries, and they have every equipment moving, connected to artificial intelligence systems, batteries in the terminal, and they manage that. But the feed for those batteries are what makes a difference. Today we have the normal grid, which is electricity that comes from fuel, furnace, gas, whatever. There, no, it's renewable energy that feeds those batteries, and those batteries actually feeds all the equipments in the terminal, and that's what makes it actually an automated port that tick the box of a neutral carbonization initiative. Now, shipping lines, on the other hand, they have targets as well, and maybe Mr. Hisham can correct me then. We saw that they have targets by 2040, 2050, that they will only be visiting ports that are neutral carbonized, or they will be going to green ports and semi or automated ports. And that makes a big difference to the port industry within the globe. So for us and for any other port owner or port operators, we have to be always ahead and thinking how we can build the foundation of reaching there. But it's an ecosystem, again, from the electricity and power side. Because to feed our ports with that type of energy, the renewable ones, we have to have the ecosystem for that available in the country. to feed that. And for the port itself, now as Saudi ports, we are trying to attract more shipping lines to connect routes to enable the local exporters and importers. So we want to open new trades with new countries, new shipping lines. We are adding transshipments. What we did in the last year, in 2021, and we concluded that beginning of this year, we anchored shipping lines by their logistic facilities within our ports.
Mm-hmm.
And that will help in the next phase, the next 10, 15 years, hopefully, with the huge investments they are putting into those ports and facilities, that they will remain and sustain and use those ports for gateway cargo, which is origin and destination purposed, or transshipment that is having the add value, packaging, repackaging, pricing, labeling, storing, and all that for global trading houses. So they don't need to have a cargo for Saudi. They can mix cargo for Saudi, and then again, cargo that is purely distant from Europe or US or China to Africa, but it has to stop in Saudi to have some add value operation on it. And that helps a lot local content, helps a lot the exporters from here, because they can use those facilities as an export inventory hub for them. And whenever they have an order, they can release the order to the logistic company in the port, and from there they can ship it immediately without having to go through all the hassle of assigning a transporter, broker, forwarder, and all that. So we are trying to build those resilient setup initiatives to help traders, again, end of day, to be able to have the smooth and perfect journey within the supply chain, value chain.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rayyan. That was very educational. At the end of the session, I would like to thank you all for your valuable time. Also, we understand the part that logistics and ports are the gateway to international trade. And at this session now, we're going to have the Q&A session from the audience. We can start right now.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for this informative session. My question is to Mr. Rayyan Al-Bakri about the utilization rate of our ports here in Saudi, and if there is any new strategy on the table for increasing the utilization rate, and why are we having different utilization rates from port to another? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now we are hitting the 45, 47% utilization within our ports, and we built capacity, and we had business that is purely for the base economy. Enabling that by the transshipment hubs, the logistics, the strategy of the logistics facilities within our ports makes a big difference in enhancing that utilization element. It's a very tricky game. Why? Because today we have this happening within our ports because of the storage of the containers within the ports. So we are pushing that by reducing the free time, and that efficiency could cause in the future a lower utilization rate with a higher capacity. Now, does that mean that the port is successful or not? It doesn't have anything to do with that, because as much as efficient as you are, as much as better for you on a global trade rank purposes. Now, when the railroad gets connected, which is hopefully in the 2029, we are hoping very much that it will start by that time, as a link, as my colleague Mohammed mentioned, as a link from Riyadh to Jeddah, Yanbu, Cap, and connecting east. That should start in 2029. Once this starts as well, it will also have a trigger to the utilization rate, because most of cargo will be either moving or staying at the rail connection centers outside the port. So you will have that capacity empty almost, but the key element of that capacity purpose is to make sure that you are ready anytime, contingency regardless. So the capacity that we are planning on in Saudi Arabia, by 2030, we are building a capacity to accommodate 40 million TEUs. And that is extremely huge. It's Jabal Ali, it's Egypt, it is Abu Dhabi, it is Salalah combined, only in Saudi. So it's big. But we are not focusing much on that. However, with that, we have a challenge in the 2030 vision and MOTLS strategy that we have to achieve a capacity of a utilization of 70%, which means you have to have more and more and more transshipment to fulfill that capacity. So the strategy mainly is focused on support functions to enhance utilization, at the same time increasing the transshipment routes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rehan Al-Bakri. So I have a difficult question for you. Mr. Rehan, what we have seen that Mawani is having a very clear strategy and they are thinking on a long-term strategy for the national development plan. However, at the same time, we see that TGA or whether it's Transport Authority, the Saudi Railway, everybody has its own vision and everybody has its own strategy to achieve national goal. But where we see a gap is that there is no national game plan. If we connect the dots, maybe we can achieve our goals in a much shorter span of time. So how Mawani is connecting the dots with other entities to minimize the existing gaps and overall help the ecosystem?
Actually, it's a good question. It's not very difficult to answer. Today, within the Ministry of Transport and Logistics Services, there is an office that integrates those strategies. And we meet every 2 weeks. And with His Excellency, the Minister, we meet every month. And we discuss the intersection and the intermodality between those strategies. Now, how effective is it? We cannot say today. Why? Because it only started as soon as the strategy was announced, and that was only late last year. So beginning of this year until now, lots of changes within the MOTLS as well is happening. Why? TGA is suddenly got the postal role nowadays. And then the roads are carved out. Mawani is carving out in the next couple of months, hopefully, because the project is done. So many things are changing. The railroad strategy, every time they want to step in, one step ahead, something happens from another stakeholders beyond the MOTLS that holds that movement a little bit for a bigger picture project national initiatives. And however, what we see, what we will be seeing, and you will be feeling end of day, by end of this year, maximum beginning of 2023, things will be very much clear for all stakeholders who deals with the MOTLS entity, authorities under it. Now, and why is that? Because the maturity level is enhancing. That part of bits and pieces with each, and they do similar projects, is going to be phased out. But because it's a legacy, so we cannot expect or anticipate that a legacy of 20, 30 years back will be changed within a couple of months. That is difficult even on us internally within the ministry. So we are going there. It's a matter of time. But the integration today is happening within that office in the ministry.
Due to time constraint, we're going to have one last question.
Thank you very much again for a very enlightening panel session. Just one question, so it's on a higher level, and I don't know whether Mawani or the operators are best placed to answer it. So in 2021, Saudi GDP grew by 3.2%, obviously the post-COVID bounce back. However, from the data that we received from Mawani, because we're doing an industry study on ports infrastructure at the moment, we noticed that volumes on all segments, cars, bulk cargo, containers, they dropped by between 5 roughly about 5% across all sectors. Can you shed any light on why this might be happening? It's not a trick question, it's just one of those things that, the economy is growing. Why did shipments in all categories drop?
Okay, very interesting question actually, because I did a study similar to what you are saying, because we are affected. I mean, the first line that will be affected is us as shipping line, before the operators, before the Mawani on the drop of the volume. Actually, you saw in 2021 a big pile up of stock everywhere. People were afraid. The ocean freights were not helping. And so the stock has come up dramatically, and then the demand was stable, let's say. And you did not see the curve going up because the warehousings were full, number one. Number two, the interruption which was there generally on the shipping line routes, let's say. In China, what happened in terms of blockage, what happened in the various areas of the port closures of let's say, of Chinese port. Everybody saw what has happened in the west side of USA, where the congestion was up to the peak and nothing was moving over there. So these interruptions has led actually to a big interruption in terms of the supply chain, and the graph which was really not helping. What we are expecting, let's say, for 2023 is other way around. I mean, we expect to a great extent that the volumes, especially for import, will grow to a great extent. The hard part is what we are seeing today is on export. And I don't know whether your study was combining import and export together, but the downfall which we are seeing now in the export is because of the recession in Europe, because of the war in Europe, let's say, and because of what is happening today in China in terms of, let's say, the curve which is coming down, closures of the port. Also, what is happening in China today in terms of costing the energy, saving the energy, and so on and so on. So, I mean, everything is linked together at the end of the day. I mean, we in Saudi Arabia, we are part of a global, let's say, movement on supply and demand and on the supply chain itself. Now, another point which I have to tell you also is that the change of mentality of some of the importers, where wherever, because of the high ocean freights which was there, huge difference which it made, wherever they saw that there is any possibility that they source their cargo locally or within the nearby countries, they did the change. So there was a part of cargo which has been shifted from internationally being imported into, let's say, domestic, and also within GCC countries that had then the effect on the total number of what we have seen, the drop of the, let's say, the curve which has come down a little bit during this period of time.
Thank you very much. Makes perfect sense.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Maybe if I add something,
Yeah.
and I'll try to paint a more positive picture. So on the opposite end, I will tell you that I can say that for containers in Dammam at least, it's the opposite. We've seen growth across all sectors, whether it's transshipment, whether it's export, empties, whatever the case may be, imports, exports, they're all green. And this tells you that maybe the entire picture may not be so rosy, but really cargo goes where it's needed, right? And I think the initiatives under Vision 2030, it's really taking its effect. You see the cargoes going into Riyadh, going to Dammam, and where the growth is. I think the second part is really to also address the forward thinking. When you talk about, I think there's some question on capacity or utilization. Really these days we are looking at effective utilization, right? Across everywhere you can see there are berths, but there are some berths that are better than other berths. There are some equipment that are better than other equipment, right? And when the shipping lines increase their vessel size, you really start looking at what is the premium berth and how you can serve for the future. So, 5 years ago, if we hadn't thought about a deeper draft, a wider crane, this 23,000s wouldn't go into the Gulf. It didn't make sense. And today they are, and it's a regular feature. We were wondering, is it a short term? No, it's not. It's a long term. So I think this is where the partnership with the ports and with the regulators as well, we play the long game. We have to think forward. We have to think about the future. Like I think one of the panelists mentioned, if you think about your next 2 years, you're not going to do too much. If you think about yourself as the next 30 years, then the game changes a little bit. And this touches on the point of automation as well. It's a long game. It's a long game. Today, when Singapore announced in September the Tuas Megaport, which is a fully automated terminal, I think some of the colleagues from SIDF were able to witness when we hosted them just a couple of weeks ago. This took 15, 20 years of automation testing. It is a very long game, right? And even within Damam itself, we are partnering with various stakeholders like STC and others to dedicate an area to test future technologies. If you think from a commercial perspective, it doesn't make sense. I can use that space for much more. But I think really we have to play that long game to understand that when you have automation, like what Ryan was saying, it's environmental. And even within Saudi, it is also social. We need to find a way to enhance our value added to that particular job. And if we can Saudiize that job, all the more better. I think we have seen in Singapore, for example, the operator is not on the crane. They are in a room, right, an air-conditioned room, and they're able to swap with their friends or their colleagues to go for a bio break versus having to stay on the crane for 8 hours or 12 hours. So there are things that you have to think long-term in order to get ahead of the game. And I think this is where we will try to our best as well as an operator to develop that kind of effective capacity to serve the kingdom. Thank you.
Thank you. Since now we reach the end of our session, I would like to thank our audience again, our viewers, also our panelists for their time and for sharing your knowledge. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the knowledgeable discussion panel. Now I would like to invite the VP of Studies, Engineer Ahmed Al-Bagawi, to honor the respected speakers. Starting with Mr. Muhammad Al-Shammari. Mr. Farouk Sheikh. Mr. Farouk. Oh, okay. Mr. Abdullah Al-Khnani. Mr. Ayman Al-Amar. Mr. Hisham Al-Ansari. Mr. Rayyan Al-Bakri. Mr. Edwin Leong. Mr. Jade Dawabi. Mr. Mish'al Al-Hidam. Mr. Saud bin Bakhit. And finally, Mr. Muhammad Al-Bassam. Thank you again. That concludes our session. Thank you. Oh, myself. Thank you.
Thank you.